This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about family-friendly 80s insults, the Medill F, and Rickrolling before Rickrolling was a thing. All that and more as we watch Season 4, Episode 21 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Sophia. I am one of your hosts, and joining me as always is my co-host and my brother. What's up, Imran?
Hello, Sophia. How you doing?
I'm doing well. What's going on with you?
I don't know. It's weird. I've got weird feelings. I feel like I'm living in a time warp.
Time warp?
Yeah. For example, I just saw a Top Gun movie at the theater.
Yes.
And thanks to Stranger Things, all the kids are playing Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill over and over again.
This is also true.
What year is this? What is happening?
I hope it's 1989.
The 80s are alive and well. Look, even right now in present day 2022, 80s and 90s nostalgia is hot.
That's correct. It really, really is. And that's what we're here for. We love it.
It was never hotter than this show, Perfect Strangers.
Never hotter. And today we're going to discuss Perfect Strangers Season 4, Episode 21, entitled Teacher's Pest.
I was called that. Oh, no, wait. I was called Teacher's Pet.
Oh, were
That's
you?
weird.
I think this is
neither.
Teacher's Pest is a play on the expression teacher's pet. But we're going to see what happens.
Sometimes the teacher is a pest.
Sometimes the students are a pest. I don't know.
What is this episode about? If you cracked open the TV guide back in the day, you would have read, asked to teach a college course, Larry plans to mold the minds of future journalists by setting class standards high. But there's a price on Larry's head when students learn the standards are far beyond their reach.
Uh-oh.
It's okay to set standards high.
So, yeah, it seems like the apostrophe S in teachers stands for teacher is pest.
Teacher is pest.
Teacher is a pest.
Teacher is pest.
Teacher's pest.
Not his pest.
Yes.
You got your basic recurring awesome cast of Bronson Pinchot as Balky, Mark Lynn Baker as Larry Appleton. We do get a cameo from Melissa Wilson as Jennifer and Rebecca Arthur as Marianne. We haven't seen Marianne in a while. Last time we saw Jennifer.
Yeah.
But she was by herself.
We also have some Chronicle favorites. We have Harriet, played by Jo Marie Peyton France. We have Mr. Wainwright, played by F.J. O'Neill.
Oh,
and then a handful of other small roles that we will discuss when we get there.
Some extras. This episode first aired April 28th, 1989.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And Perfect Strangers, of course, is streaming for free on Amazon Freevee. Everyone can watch and enjoy with one small commercial break in the middle of every episode. Act 1, what do we got? We start in the basement of the Chronicle, and Larry's at his desk. He's working away, and Mr. Wainwright, the publisher, R.T. Wainwright, shows up. And he calls Appleton, and he tells Larry that every year one of the Chronicle reporters teaches a journalism course at Chicago Community College.
Oh, it's the old CCC.
CCC. And
I love their football team.
And apparently Walpole.
Oh, Mushmouth and the other guy, Walpole.
Maytag and
Whirlpool.
Walpole recommended Larry for the job.
This is a hot start because Wainwright just walks in with the plot of the episode right away.
Like,
no setup, no
Appleton,
opening joke.
You're going to teach a class at the good old CCC.
Here's what we're doing.
And Larry gushes. He's so flattered. He's honored. He takes it as a big compliment. And Wainwright kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, oh, I knew you'd make a big deal out of this. And Larry continues to gush. It's just that of all the people at the Chronicle, the fact that he picked me, and Wainwright's like, Appleton, and he's like, I'm doing it again. Right? So Wainwright gives him this news, but he's not so super excited about it. Larry is very excited. Why did Walpole recommend Larry? Who knows? Maybe they didn't want to teach. Marshall and Walpole didn't want to do the class
They sent
themselves.
him on all the crappy assignments.
I'm sure
right?
they're stuck up and they're like, oh, it's just community college. Let's send
They
somebody
made him
else.
do the
Let's send
game show
Appleton to do it.
story, and they're like, community college. Appleton, get us a sandwich and go teach this class. We're too busy. But Larry is super excited and tells Wainwright, I'll try to make you proud of me. And Wainwright's like, well, I'll be satisfied if you don't embarrass the Chronicle, which is, there's a that's a fair warning.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that happens with Larry. So Larry is so excited, he goes and turns to Harriet, who's been standing by the elevator, like doing a crossword puzzle this whole time. And she's like, Harriet, did you hear the news? Do you want me to teach a class? And she's just like, and he just goes all crazy and goes, maybe I'll get the class to publish their own paper. I can divide them up into departments. We could take them. Oh, he's like, I could take them all to Washington.
And Harry goes, stop the presses, baby. This is junior college, not Time magazine.
Yeah, slow your roll, Larry.
And Larry explains to Harriet that he's so excited because this could be his chance to make a mark on the future of American journalism.
He always has to blow everything out of proportion.
He's going to be molding the minds of tomorrow.
Are you, Larry?
And Harriet continues. She goes, first they burn a hole in the ozone layer. Now they've got you molding minds. World's getting scarier all the time.
Oh, Harriet has no idea how much scarier it gets after 1989. I find it interesting that like the whole environment notion was already, this was a big thing in 89.
The ozone layer was already a thing.
The ozone layer gets a mention, right?
Yes.
That layer is got to be completely gone by now. I doubt there's anything left.
There's no more ozone.
Yeah.
No zone.
It's a no-zone layer.
No zone layer. So Harriet leaves. She gets her little quip in. The world's getting scary, and she leaves. And then we have the most amazing Balky entrance and song alert. We haven't had a song and dance entrance from Balky in a while.
Yeah.
And this one is amazing now in 2022 because the song Balky enters singing and dancing to is none other than Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh my God. When I saw this, I was like, oh no, this song. And he comes in with, I just want to tell you how I'm feeling. And like describe, this dance is amazing. He is gyrating his hips to the music.
There's always a hip gyration.
And the audience is going, they're losing it. They're like,
this is 1989, way before what is now known as Rickrolling. To this song.
So this song came out in 1987, and it did reach number one in a lot of charts. UK, US. It was a hit song. But now it is known, it's lived in infamy as the Rickrolling song.
Yeah, describe what Rickrolling is.
I mean, I feel at this point, if you're listening to this podcast on the internet, you have been Rickrolled. Everyone has been Rickrolled, and it's the bait and switch thing where someone will post or send you an email and they'll be like, this is the greatest thing ever. I've fallen for it a couple of times.
Yeah.
They'll be like, you're waiting for a trailer for a new movie to come out. And they'll be like, the trailer's been released. Click here, check it out. And you click it and it takes you to the video. I'm never going to give you up. And you're just like, and initially it does make you mad. And then you laugh and then you pass it on to someone else because you want them to be frustrated also.
And a few years ago, this very clip of Balky singing and dancing to Never Gonna Give You Up was involved in this Rickrolling prank where there were links going around apparently around the internet that said like Bronson Pinchot sex tape, this and that, and you click on it and it's this clip from this episode.
Oh my God, it is a meta Rickroll within a Rickroll.
Perfect Strangers was way ahead of its time with this song.
They invented the Rickroll before the Rickroll was a thing. We're talking 2007.
Yeah.
The very first Rickroll, just so we all know where it started, was in March 2007. Like I said, there was a trailer for a highly anticipated video game, Grand Theft Auto 4, from Rockstar. People were waiting for the trailer, and people posted saying trailer is out, but then they link to the Rickroll video. All started in 4chan. 4chan always starts all the troublesome things. But so this is, I remember from 2007 to like still now, occasionally it comes up. It's died out.
Yeah, it still comes up here and there, but always delightful to have Balky enter with a song and dance, and this was extra delightful.
I think we need to send the Balky clip and start the Rickrolling, Balky rolling again.
Balky rolling.
The Balky roll. That's great. It's a meme within a meme of him singing.
So meta. Okay.
Future.
So Balky's now in the scene with a great song and hip gyration dance. And he's gyrating so much that Larry says, Balky, before you do injury to some major muscle group, let me tell you the good news. And this is great. He goes, guess who's going to be teaching journalism at your school? It's Balky. It's the community college that Balky goes to.
Yeah.
And Balky gets so excited. He goes, Walter Cronkite? And Larry goes, nope.
No.
And Balky goes, Ted Koppel? He goes, no. And Balky goes, Willard Scott?
These are all fantastic guesses, too.
Well, the joke here is that Walter Cronkite and Ted Koppel were prominent broadcast journalists. Willard Scott was a weather presenter.
Yeah, he was like
a weather journalist.
Funny, goofy, balding guy.
Yeah, he was not. But the fact that Balky's third guest,
to Willard Scott.
He's getting excited about Willard Scott teaching journalism. And Larry says, no, of course not. It's me. And Balky's like, you're not even on television. What do you know about journalism? And Larry's like, newspaper journalism.
Oh, okay.
Balky's like, oh, okay, then you'd be perfect. And then he gets so excited. He's like, I can't believe I know a college teacher. And he says, this is going to make me a BSOC, a big sheep herder on campus.
That's funny. It's BMOC, right?
BMOC, big man on campus.
What about BWOC? Do they do that? Big woman on campus now?
Maybe.
BSOC.
BSOC, big sheep herder on campus. So Balky's excited. Larry's excited. Everyone's excited.
Balky has a story shirt on here. It's a white one with trees and horses and leaves and butterflies.
There's a lot of story shirts.
There's a lot of stories. It's a good one. He's worn this one before.
So we cut to the next scene, and we are now at Balky's community college at night, which suspiciously looks a lot like the high school building where Balky was studying
the same place
for his high school diploma. And then we're inside in a classroom, and there's some students sitting around and entering. And Larry comes in, and
he has way too much stuff.
He has a lot of stuff. He's got box and folders and a briefcase.
What is all
and
this
he's wearing this tweed jacket with leather elbow patches. It's a little overboard for like someone who's presumably 25 years old.
But that's how you know you're a professor. You have the elbow patches.
It's gone to his head.
He must be a teacher.
The students all take their seats, and Larry welcomes them to Journalism 101, Introduction to News Writing.
So I love this. Larry is not smooth at all, right? He gets to the desk. He's like, I'd like to welcome you to Journalism 101, Introduction to News Writing. He turns, he takes a step immediately, just falls down behind the desk.
Face plants, like straight down.
And then he pops up real quickly. He goes, let me introduce myself. My name is, he picks up a piece of chalk. The chalk breaks in half, of course, immediately. And then so he has to pick that up. And then he writes his name. And nervously, he ends up writing Mr. Appleton.
He leaves out the L in Appleton.
He goes, my name is Mr. Appleton. Appleton. And then he's trying to, and then he erases the P and the E and
just
scribbles
makes a big
the L.
mess out of
and
it.
You can't even read it. And then he tries to put the chalk and the eraser back down on the ledge of the chalkboard. It falls on the floor. He picks it up and gently places it on the table. He's like, let me just, there's a bigger surface area here. And he is just...
so like a really frantic introduction to this class.
And the whole class is staring at his craziness because he is just not doing well. Appleton.
So then he continues and he tries to give them a little background on himself. And as he starts to talk, the door to the classroom bursts open and Balky comes running in. Cousin, in front of the whole class. He's calling him, cousin, great news. Balky's class was canceled, so now he gets to take Larry's class. And he says, and now we're so happy we do the dance of joy. And he starts dancing, but Larry's just standing still like, no, Balky, no, not right now. And Balky's like trying to lift him up.
It is a one-sided dance of joy.
A one-way dance of joy.
We get a half dance of joy, at which point Larry tells Balky, Balky, I'm in the middle of a class. I have a class in session. And Balky turns around and looks and sees all the students. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, cousin Larry.
And then Larry says again, close to Balky's face in front of the students, you should call me Mr. Appleton. And he goes, Mr. Appleton. And so then and Larry's like, yes. And so then he takes a seat, and as he's taking a seat, he says to another student, he says, I'm his cousin. He lets me call him Cousin Larry at home.
He's proud to know him.
And so Larry tries to continue telling them about his background. And before he can get any further, this girl from the way back row of the class, she's reading a Femme magazine.
I don't even know if this is a real magazine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or
Some girly magazine.
It's like a Vogue, it's your Vogue Vanity Fair.
And she goes, excuse me, is this going to be on the final exam? And Larry's like, no. And she goes, oh, and goes back to her magazine.
There was always that girl, right?
Yeah.
There's always that one. You're like, I'm not paying attention unless it's on the final.
And so then he continues.
Magazine
He
girl.
tries to get back to telling his background again. And he finally starts. He tells them for the past 2 years, he's been intimately involved with the day-to-day operation of one of America's great newspapers, the Chicago Chronicle. And then Balky pipes up. He goes, I can vouch for that. He works in the basement with me.
No.
Balky is just ruining his
Blowing up his
chill.
spot there. Yeah.
Larry continues. He tells them he's been working for the past few months closely with Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporting team of Marshall and Walpole.
Mushmouth and Walpole.
And here comes Balky again, and he says, and get this, not only do they sometimes let him write, but they send him out for lunch every single day. And Larry's trying to stop him, but Balky keeps going, and he never gets it wrong. I don't know how he does it, except there was that one time, the egg salad incident.
The egg salad incident. That's great.
And Larry's like, getting so embarrassed now. He cuts him off. He's like, excuse me. He walks toward Balky, and Balky puts his arms up like for a hug. And Larry just puts his hand in Balky's face.
Pushes him back.
And pushes him back to shut him up. And he leans in close and he says, I am the teacher. You are the student. I talk, you listen. And Balky goes, just like at home.
And then Balky tries to hug him again, and Larry pushes his face back again. And then walks back to the front of the class. I kind of want to know what the egg salad incident was, but we never find out.
What could it be? So then Larry gets right into it and gives the class the first assignment.
Oh, very good.
Which is to take any ordinary event in the next few days and write it as a news story. And he says, to help you, I have prepared this concise, easy to read 47-page guide on how to write a news story.
At which point, the Femme magazine girl again goes, is this going to be on the final? And this time Larry goes, yes. And she's like, oh, fine. Like, she's annoyed. Like, oh, okay, now you're going to make me pay attention. She's whining. It's so funny. And she starts to pay attention, and Balky turns to her and goes, he may seem tough now, but once you get to know him, you'll find he's totally without merit.
I think the expression he wanted to say was totally with merit.
But he's meritless.
But he says without merit.
That's pretty fun.
Okay, so there's the assignment. There's like pretty much the setup of the episode. That we cut to the next scene, which is in their apartment a few days later. And Balky runs in. He's got a notepad, and he's excited again. He's always entering excited. Every room. Cousin. Is this good enough for my news story? I just saw a cloud in the sky that looks like a bull moose. And Larry goes, I don't think so. How about one that looks like Sybil Sheepherder?
Sybil Sheepherder.
Which is another nod to Moonlighting,
Sybil
which
Shepherd.
aired opposite this
Bruce
show.
Willis. But in Repos, she's the Sybil Sheepherder. And Larry's like, look, Balky, you're going to have to do better. And Balky is just frustrated. He says he's been looking for days. He can't come up with anything. He says, I'm at the end of my soap on a rope. That's pretty funny. The expression is what? I'm at the end of my rope.
My rope.
He throws in soap on a rope.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get Larry to give him a little advice.
This is really
a little
funny.
bit of a hint. He's like, can you just give me a little tiny little itty bitty hint? And Larry, of course goes, it's not going to be fair to the other students if I gave you special treatment. Okay, fair point. Balky says he wants his paper to be good. It wants to be the best one. And he's like, come on, cousin, just a little bit. And then he starts moving his hands towards Larry's face. And he goes, just a little bit. And he's touching his face. And he finally grabs Larry's upper and lower lip with one in each hand, right? He's like, just let it out. Yeah. He's like, just you're thinking.
He's just moving
and he
his
taps
lips.
his forehead. Yeah. It comes down his nose. It comes down here. You're just thinking. It comes down the nerve endings. And it pops out. It just pops out. Please, just a little hint. And then Larry just goes, no. As Balky opens his mouth and closes it.
Oh, my
At the
gosh.
same time saying no. It's so funny.
So funny.
He's holding on to his lips.
Upper lip and bottom lip.
And Mark
moving it.
Baker does not crack at all.
I wonder how many times
because
they had
he's
to do
right
this.
in his face.
Yeah.
And again, like last episode, he is trying to make him laugh.
And,
it's not working.
Bronson Pinchot is holding in his laughter
he's cracking
again.
it up because he's holding his lips.
So funny. Okay, so he says no, and then there's a knock at the door, and the girlfriends show
They're
up,
both like, come in at the same time. I
Yeah.
love when they do that.
and they are in their flight attendant uniforms. So they've just come from work, and Balky says, welcome home. So they've been on some flight. They just got back, and they say, you won't believe what happened on our flight. A fight broke out.
Oh, my God.
And Larry and they said some of the people in the no smoking section started smoking, while some of the non-smokers got upset. The next thing we knew, people started shoving each other, and food was flying everywhere.
This is why we should never had a smoking section on
Yeah,
airplanes.
on the
it
airplanes.
makes no sense.
no
Of
sense.
course, people are going to get upset. There's nothing blocking the smoke, is there?
But that is like a very exciting thing they just spoke about. And Larry says, kind of aimed at Balky, well, that is quite a story.
Looking right at Balky.
And he says, that's some exciting news. Isn't that exciting news, Balky? And Balky's like, have you got a tick?
He's not getting the hint.
And then as Larry starts to explain to the girls that Balky's looking for a story for his journalism class, Balky's like, oh, I got it. I could write about the food fight on the aeroplane.
Aeroplane.
And Larry's like, yep, there's a thought. And Larry's trying to be encouraging. He says, Balky, you've got quite a nose for news. Balky says, well, it is the pride of Meepos.
And then he's touching his nose on both sides, and he's like, look at this nose.
I thought his legs were the pride of Meepos.
Every part of Bronson Pinchot is the pride of
as
Meepos.
it should be. As it should be.
This chest hair is the pride of Meepos. All of it is the pride of Meepos. So we cut to a few days later at night, and Larry has come home. He's settling in. He's got his briefcase on the table, and Balky comes running in again. And he wants him to grade his story. But Larry, he said he just got back from class. He's tired. He doesn't feel like grading papers. And Balky starts begging, please grade my paper. No. And he keeps going, please grade my paper. Oh, please, please. No, please. And then finally goes, please. And then Larry just goes, all right. Gives in. At which point, Balky jumps from the couch and grabs his paper, which is in this amazing decorated folder that seems to have like fabric on the outside, tassels on the corners, and chains with little medallions that are
coins,
that are jingling.
Bells.
It is making loud jingle bell sounds as he brings it over, and I'm like, "Whoa, what is this thing?"
It's bejeweled, it's decked out, and Larry just says,
And
"Nice
it's like,
cover."
ching, 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 ching.
And Balky says, "It can also be used as a tambourine."
Which is handy when you're in a jam session and you need a tambourine, right? Grab
And
your
he
report
says,
cover.
most of my teachers give me extra credit for presentation.
Hey, it's part of the grade, you know. It's
And
important.
then this is another little physical comedy. Balky, they're both sitting on the couch. Balky throws his arm around Larry's shoulder and then from under his armpit, like opens the folder in front of him and flips the pages.
Like he's expected him to grade it right there with him.
Yeah.
And Larry's just like, Balky, why don't you find something else to do while I grade your paper?
Yes. And so Balky's like, okay, I get it. And he says, I get it. You don't have to paint me a photograph.
It's picture.
Paint me a picture.
picture.
So he says he's just going to do some light housework over there by the bookshelf. And did you notice something different on the wall? There's a new painting over the stereo.
Over the stereo. That's right.
Very brightly colored something.
Yeah, they switched that
wasn't
out.
there before.
And you know what? We haven't gotten to the Dimitri appearance, but I was fully expecting a clear shot. And there's no Dimitri.
There's no Dimitri.
Look at this clear shot
Spoiler.
of the bookshelf.
I know.
You got to put him right there.
Dimitri was out on assignment reporting a news story.
Oh, maybe he was. He could have been a professor or something.
Journalist,
a journalist
with a little
press
fedora
hat
and a press flag on it.
Come on, Dimitri Wrangler.
All right, so Balky gets up to do some housework. He grabs this like feather duster thing on the bookshelf, and he's back by the wall. And then he apparently the handle of this feather duster is extendable, so he makes it a little bit longer.
Because he's dusting, but he's
which
more
gets him
interested
closer to
in
the couch.
Larry.
Yeah.
He's not paying attention.
So he's trying to look over Larry's shoulder while he grades. And then
Not long enough.
And then he extends the handle again, which gets him even more closer to the couch, reading over Larry's shoulder. And then he extends it a third time. And at that point, he's standing right behind the couch.
It is ridiculously
and he's still
long.
dusting because the duster handle is so long.
Is this to dust the ceiling? Why would it
I
need to
don't
be
know.
that? It's
Yeah.
ridiculously long, but it's hilarious. And he's right over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he's reading Larry's notes that he's writing or something. And Larry's like, I thought you were dusting over there. And Bucky's like, I am dusting over there. And shows him where the duster is.
And Larry looks over his other shoulder to see oh, the duster is at the bookshelf. Okay, so then Larry finally finishes and he closes the folder. He says, okay, I'm done. And Balky gets so excited. He runs over and he says, oh, cousin, I'm so excited. How did I do? And Larry tries to sort of temper the excitement. He says, remember, this is your first attempt. And Balky is too excited. He says he wants an A+. And he says, but I know this is my first attempt at a news story, and there's probably some room for improvement, so I guess I better be prepared to live with an A.
Oh, boy. High expectations here.
And Balky takes the folder, the decked-out folder, and he opens it, and he finds his grade, and he looks at Larry going, an F?
Oh!
An F?
Oh, that's harsh.
And Larry says there were some fundamental mistakes. And he tells him, I know you're a little disappointed, but look at this as a growth experience. And Balky goes, I'm going to get taller from this?
I love this delivery because it's not like him being literal. It is, but it's more like
he's in shock.
He's mad and it's almost sarcastic.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to get taller from this. It's such a funny line.
And Larry says, no, I mean, one can often learn more from failure than from success. And Balky says, can I learn a little less and get a C?
It's a fair ask.
Yeah.
Can we balance this out? And Larry's like, no. He goes, Balky, I know I set my grading standards high, but he expects a lot from his students. And he goes, if you try, you'll get back a paper with an A on it and it will really mean something. Balky's like, well, that's something to shoot for.
And they say goodnight and they go to bed and the scene fades out. And that's the end of our Act 1.
Listener, join the conversation join our Facebook group. It is a fun, safe environment where I post threads on every episode we are recording. So you can leave your comments and observations and we will include them in the show. I do think we should take a moment. We got to welcome. We had a bunch of new people.
We do have a bunch of new members in the group. So big, heartfelt dance of joy. Welcome to, and if I butcher your name, my apologies. Well, let's just do it this way. To Scott W., Jose, Leo DeCastro, David Rhodes, Roberto D., Whitney Smith, Nicole Stoner, and Gary Stein. Welcome, new cousins.
Welcome, cousins. You get this.
Cousins should joke more.
Yes, they should.
By the way, Nicole Stoner, amazing name. That's for separate reasons. I wanted to share Scott's message when we welcomed him to the group. He left this great message. He said, just discovered this podcast the other day and then discovered, thanks to the podcast, that seasons 3 on are available on Amazon for free. I've been showing my 6-year-old son some of the more physical comedy-based episodes. Games People Play, Pipe Dreams, Just Desserts, Piano Movers.
All good ones.
Those are all fantastic episodes, right, Pierre? And watching them laugh at Balky and Larry's antics are bringing a whole new level of enjoyment for me.
That's so awesome.
I've been a huge Perfect Strangers fan since the original air dates, and I'm thrilled to have come across this group. That's great.
Thank you so much, Scott, and big welcome to
Share
our
it
group.
with the next generation. And man, those are some of our favorite episodes right there. So well done, Scott. Good selection.
Done. Act 2. Let's keep going. So Act 2 starts. We're back at school, back in class, in the classroom, and Larry's at the blackboard, and he's mid-lecture, and this lecture is just so funny to me.
What's he lecturing about?
I went to journalism school for undergrad. I
never had this
had a lot of journalism,
lesson,
and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is so funny to me. So he's mid-lecture,
There's
and he's
all
saying,
these words on the chalkboard, right? There's sentences written.
Yeah.
What does he say? What's
he's saying,
the lesson?
keep that in mind when you are writing. Remember, when you organize those long, complicated sentences, try a semicolon. And he's got this pointer and he points to the semicolons on the board. And he says, it may just be what you need to save your story.
He's like a semicolon salesman, right? He's trying to pitch the semicolon.
Which actually is terrible writing advice.
That's not good advice?
No. Because when you have long sentences, you should just break them up with a period and into shorter sentences.
And make them shorter sentences.
Semicolon can also work, but there's added meaning to a semicolon. Anyway,
Larry does not know what he's talking about. Maybe he does. I don't know.
And then he's trying to be all professorial and authoritative, and he shuts the pointer thing, but he catches his finger in it.
He's like, oh.
And there's a big laugh from the audience.
He's not smooth at all in front of this class every time.
Yeah. And so then we're coming up to the end of class, and he asks Balky to help him hand back the news story assignments. And Balky looks pretty surprised, and he gets up and he goes to Cousin Larry, and he says, but cousin, as an F student, I'm not qualified to pass out papers. Balky takes everything so to heart. And Larry says, you're not an F student.
This is a great line.
You're a good student who did F work.
Oh. Larry.
It happens to the best of us.
And then the big dude in class, there's always the big football guy who's like, he chimes and he goes, you're going to pass out the papers or we're going to grow old together.
That's a funny line.
Very impatient, but he's got a point. Get to the papers.
The big dude. So they start passing them back. And Larry's explaining that he saw potential in them, but there's also room for improvement. And then soon we start hearing from the students, and it turns out they all got Fs.
Oh, what?
Someone goes, hey, this is an F. Hey, I got an F too.
This looks like an F.
And Larry's saying things like, but maybe with some hard work, your next assignment can be a D. And then everyone starts complaining. There's almost like an uprising here. And they're saying things like, jerk.
The
and
big
like,
guy just goes, jerk.
I think someone says dipstick.
Yes. And
like
Larry
just
goes,
ridiculous 80s insults.
Larry's trying to, make it better. He goes, one can often learn more from failure than from success. And the big guy goes, who's this guy, Mr. Rogers?
Oh, my gosh.
Nobody wants to hear this. There's a girl who goes, I've never gotten an F in my life.
And then another girl goes, you failed all of us?
And then another student points out, and this from a guy who works in the basement.
Ouch.
This is not going well for Larry. He has failed the whole class. Wow.
All right, let's talk about
dipstick. Someone says dipstick and jerk.
Let's talk about a couple of these students, the actors who play the students. So the big guy, the character's name is Chuck. The big guy is played by an actor named Joshua Cadman, who was on a lot of these shows back then. He was in episodes of Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley and Full House.
Oh, wow. He had some good work. Yeah.
And then there's the girl in front who said she'd never
never got an F. Yeah.
She's never gotten an F. This is an actress named Eva LaRue, and I think she had more lines previously that got cut. She later would go on to be on the George Lopez show, which co-starred Belita Moreno.
Oh, look at that. Full circle.
I never watched a lot of George Lopez.
I heard it was a good show, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's also been on All My Children and some CSI and some other CSI Miami. So these are just actors that were around, maybe got their early start on this episode.
So the class is now starting to get unruly, and the whole time Balky is just sitting there taking this in, right? He's looking around. He's like, whoa, absorbing all this.
Balky's like a little bit in shock. He's like, he can't believe that Larry failed the whole class.
And Larry is just trying to calm everyone down. He's like, hey, I know this first assignment was tough, but this is all aimed at making you good journalists. And Chuck goes, who wants to be a journalist? I want to be a linebacker. Look, Larry, this is junior college. These people don't care. They're just here for a credit. And the bell rings and people get up and walk out. A lot of them leave their papers there.
There's a bell at the end of college classes.
There's a bell after night class. But you can also hear people go, geek,
meatball.
Goes meatball.
These are such funny 1989 insults.
80s insults. Dipstick, jerk, geek,
meatball.
And meatball. They all leave, and Bucky is just sitting there left with Larry.
And half of them left their papers
they
on the
threw it
desk.
on the ground. They didn't even take it. They're like, I want this.
And Balky's like, you failed the entire class.
Larry goes, I wonder what got into them.
Yeah.
Just oblivious.
Balky's like, you failed the entire class. And Larry said, I told you I set my standards high. And Balky says, your standards are so high, I can't even see them from here. And Larry says, no, my standards are not that high. If I want to bring out the best in my students, they're going to just have to learn from their mistakes like you did.
What?
And Balky's like, what? What are you talking about? And Larry tells Balky that he read Balky's second attempt at the story. And he says Balky has definitely improved. To which Balky says, what second attempt at a story? And Larry said that he found Balky's second story on the kitchen table this morning. So he took the liberty to grade it. And he pulls out this regular folder, not bejeweled.
No, doesn't
not
make a
tasseled,
sound. Yeah, you can't use it as a musical
regular
instrument.
folder. And Balky says, "Oh, this isn't my story. This is Mr. Wainwright's story that he wrote in college.
Whoa.
Mr. Wainwright, the publisher of the Chronicle." And then Larry's a little nervous. He's like, what?
He's like, oh.
And Balky said, he gave it to me so that I could learn by looking at a really good news story. And it must be good because he got an A on it from the prestigious Columbia University School of Journalism.
Wait, is it? That's a real, they have a real journalism school,
They
right?
have a grad program only, yeah.
And then there's a pause, and Larry's just like, he got an A on it? And Balky goes, yes. And there's a great long pause here where they're just sitting there and Balky's starting to realize, and very slowly he turns and looks at him. He goes, what grade did you give him? And Larry's like, doesn't make any difference. And he's trying to get the folder back. He goes, it's not your paper. And now they're doing a tug of war with this folder. They both have hands onto it, pulling it back and forth.
And Balky says, Mr. Wainwright, give it to me. And Larry said, you left it on the kitchen table. And Balky says, that don't mean you can take it. And Larry says, finders keepers. And they're pulling back and forth, back and forth.
He uses the old finders keepers argument. That doesn't apply here, Appleton. And then Balky starts to tickle Larry.
Yeah, Larry grabs it from Balky's hand. Then Balky tickles Larry, which causes him to throw the folder up into the air. Balky, of course, catches it. Then Larry lunges, and Balky holds him back with one arm while holding the folder out.
And
the
Larry
other
can't reach
way,
it because he's a tiny man.
Because he's a small little guy.
And Balky's got a big arm reach there.
And then
wingspan.
he's holding Larry back. Larry's like still grasping at it, and he manages to open the folder, and he goes,
as Larry is still trying to reach for it now, but Balky has seen the grade.
You gave Mr. Wainwright a C minus?
A C minus for Mr. Wainwright. Oh, my God.
And Larry is like super embarrassed and confused. And he said, I had my reasons. There was no name, several comma problems, and I thought it went on a bit.
That's so funny. Several comma problems, and I thought it went on a bit. That was his harsh criticism. Then Larry goes, Columbia School of Journalism?
And Balky says his instructor was Edward R. Murrow.
Oh, Larry's like, oh.
And Larry goes, oh, my Lord.
Edward R. Murrow was who?
Edward R. Murrow was a very prominent, well-respected journalist who was known for his radio news reports during World War II.
Yeah, started
initially.
in the coverage of the Second World War.
And he was one of the early pioneers of television journalism. And he was very involved in the McCarthy hearings in the 1950s.
That's right, yes.
Edward
R.
And then
Murrow
he
was
went
the McCarthy
on
guy.
to have all these, like, there was, in 2005, recently, there was a movie about him, Good Night and Good Luck, which was about Murrow's conflict with Senator McCarthy. So Murrow was a very prominent figure in journalism history, but
did not teach
I don't think he taught at Columbia University.
But he did teach Mr. Wainwright in Perfect Strangers universe.
Yes.
So yeah, and then this is great because he's Balky's like, I've got to go to another class. And then he just looks at Larry and he goes, Bull. And he starts to leave. And Larry's looking at the story. He goes, Edward R. Murrow.
Oh, boy.
And then as Balky leaves, he gives one more pull. He's like, pull. And he leaves out the door. And then Larry's just standing there and he gets his briefcase together, finally grabs his jacket, walks over to the door. He opens the door. Who's standing there? Well, it's Chuck. And
big
Chuck
guy.
does not look happy. He goes, I want to discuss my grade. and your face. Oh my God, what is he going to do? He's threatening him. And then Larry's like, I'll be with you in just a moment. And he turns and he locks the door, pulls the shade down. Remember when there were shades on door windows?
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to jump out the window or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's your move? How are you going to get out of here?
We find out what he does because the next scene we cut to later that night and Balky's at home waiting for Larry to come home. And Larry comes home and Balky asks him where he's been. And Larry says, I've been sitting in my classroom waiting for security to walk me out of the building. And he goes, during those 4 hours.
He was sitting there for 4 hours waiting for Chuck to lose interest.
He said, I did some thinking. And he realizes that he went a little over the edge with this class. And Balky tells him a little story about Mipos.
This is a great story.
He says, cousin, on Mipos, when we teach sheep to jump over a fence, we don't just take them to the Great Wall of Mipos on the very first day and say, jump, muttonhead.
Muttonhead.
No, we start little. First, you teach the sheep to jump over your foot, which can be very encouraging for the sheep, although at times painful for the teacher. But what you do, you little by little, you make the goals higher and higher, and before you know it, those sheep are playing leap sheep all over the meadow. And then we hear our lesson time music. Lesson time is back.
Very nice.
The lesson is simply Larry saying, Balky, you're right. It was an introductory class. I was too hard on them. That's it. That's the lesson. It was too hard. Balky says, you still have time to change. And then we move on from there. And Larry said during those 4 hours he was hiding out, he regraded all those papers.
Oh, good. Used the time well.
And he tells Balky, he says, this time I graded purely on content. What was he grading on before?
Just personal stupid things.
Punctuation, I guess.
Yeah.
And he tells Balky, you got an A. And Balky cuts him off. I got an A. And he says, Balky, you got an A minus.
Yeah.
And Balky again is like pissed and in shock. He says an A minus.
That's a good grade, Balky. Why are you mad?
And here's the closing joke. Larry says, hey, give me a break. The best I could do for Mr. Wainwright was a B. And roll credits. So the lesson is just, I feel like they had opportunity to go deeper with this lesson. Like, Larry, relax, calm down, focus on the actual education. But the lesson was just, I was too hard on them. I took
Larry's
it too far.
power trip or hubris gets the better of him and makes him go crazy again, that's a great classic Larry move. Listener, get some Dance of Joy swag at our TeePublic shop. Visit danceofjoypod.com/shop. You can get lovely tank tops and t-shirts.
If you buy something, we'll give you an A minus.
We'll give you an A minus on your purchasing. Lots of fun things to collect and show that you listen to the show. Link in the description. Okay, so
yes.
There's some funny jokes. It's a funny situation to put
a little
Larry
bit of physical comedy
in this journalism class. A little bit of physical comedy with the lip pulling.
Yeah.
But how accurate did they nail a journalism class? You being the one of the two of us that's actually been in a journalism class.
Actually, high standards was definitely a thing at the school I went to. So I went to a journalism school called the Medill School of Journalism.
Ooh, fancy.
That was what it was called at the time. I think it's got a slightly different name now. But there was this thing called the Medill F. It was infamous. And in your first year, like in your first and second year news writing classes, in fact, through the whole curriculum, the standards were so high because they wanted to churn out journalists with high standards that had no errors.
Yeah.
So every single assignment in every journalism class, if you had a spelling mistake, if you had a punctuation mistake, if you spelled someone's name wrong, if you had a style mistake, if you missed a comma, that was an F on the whole assignment
automatically.
That got factored into your course for the grade and then your GPA. So like it was really hard. Nobody in the journalism school ever had a 4.0 GPA.
Dude, Northwestern is grading like Larry.
Yes.
Basically, not the
Larry
content.
was grading
but
like
they're looking
Medill.
for little petty little mistakes, right?
Correct.
But,
they were.
But I guess it
and
trains
it varied professor by professor.
Yeah.
But the Medill F was a thing. I got and I tell you, it stings. And you just need one Medill F, and from the next assignment, you are checking everything three times.
What if the story was garbage, but all your punctuation and names were
that
correct?
would be an F.
Okay. Just want to make sure they're
That would be
consistent.
a F plus.
That's an F plus.
But
so to this day, does that give you like trauma when you write stuff?
For sure. When I see him, I cannot stand I feel great shame if I write an email and then later see like a typo or a punctuation error or a misspelled name. Thankfully, a lot of my communications now are on platforms like Slack where you can go back and edit.
Yeah.
And I'm often editing. I'll make this is something I do commonly every day. I'll make a comment and a post and then I'll sit there and edit it like 3 times because I'm like, wait, that's not how I want to say it. Wait, I got to use this word instead.
You
wait,
do it,
this comma, this period.
Listener, she does it for our show notes. The thing that only the both of us look at. Nobody's going to see this. Everything doesn't have to be capital.
No, it
You're
has
no,
to
I
be.
got to make this right. Make it proper.
But here's the other comment.
It's a good habit to have.
A news writing assignment, granted it was their first assignment in their first class, you wouldn't have like 2 weeks to do this assignment. The whole point of the news is like
quick turnaround.
Yeah,
Give
you
it
have
to me
one
tomorrow.
day or like a few hours. Something happens, you get your story in.
Is that how your
that day.
homework was? Like it was a short turnaround.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, because you got to write it right away. First to press is important.
So that's a minor detail. But regarding the high standards, it's funny because the whole point of this episode is like I should have been easier on them. But the more I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, we had.
Yeah, but
really high
that's
standards.
But you're in a fancy schmancy journalism school. This is junior night college where they're just trying to get a passing grade.
True.
I wonder if any of those students went on to be journalists.
I'm sure.
Probably not.
So yeah, semicolons. We never had lectures on the semicolon, but we did have some out there lectures like that.
Listen, I went to art school and we would have a whole class on the color blue.
Yeah.
It happens. It's just like, we're going to talk about blue today.
Cerulean.
Yes, cerulean, teal, all kinds of blues. Just, that's what happens at art school. It's sometimes.
And at my school, you just had to make sure that you spelled cerulean correctly.
Very different. I had a very different experience.
But otherwise, it was, and the other thing is like, that I was thinking about is like, would your professor have been some 25-year-old who like has only been doing journalism for like a year or whatever, a couple years?
I think so. I had a class where it was. I thought, are you the teacher's assistant? No, he was a few years older than us, and he was the teacher.
We definitely had young industry
because you want working professionals,
professionals, but not as the professor. They would be like the lab instructors or the editors or whatever. But Larry literally only has like 2 years in that basement, right? Like, those people, the people we had teaching us had years and years and years of experience. So
it's just free publicity for the Chicago Chronicle.
I guess
that's all.
And Walpole didn't want to do it.
These people, Walt Mushmouth and Pole Vault are not getting up for that. They're busy at the bar getting drinks.
Okay, what did our listeners have to say?
Not a lot of reaction. It's a very straightforward episode, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like last week. Cousin Lauren says, typical Larry can't spell his own name.
Typical.
No appetite. And just like the awkwardness with the chalk breaking was so good. And him falling, I didn't expect that. That was hilarious.
There was a lot of Larry character. It was all about Larry. His hubris, his getting,
his nervousness and his
nervousness, his making too big a deal of things.
Being a dipstick and a jerk.
Being a dipstick.
And the meatball and a geek. He's all those things.
Yes.
Don't be ridiculous. Not said.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
And also Dimitri.
We already talked about there was a perfect shot. You had the whole
where
looking
was
at
Dimitri?
the bookshelf.
Maybe Dimitri was at the dry cleaners
for
something.
a long time looking at the bookshelf. I'm like, right there.
Yeah, we miss you, Dimitri. Come back next episode. And now we're at the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today, in which we talk about what things would be different if we were to remake this show today. Would it hold up? Would the premise hold up? Would the story hold up? I think, my first thought is that journalism is very different today. So journalism classes would be...
But you got to think about like a community college type setting also, right? It's not like a full... This is Chicago Community City College.
You could still assign a news story. Yeah, I mean, the platforms are different, but the stories are the same.
The entire class would be on Zoom. You could do it from
They would
your
do
house.
all their reporting by Twitter.
Yes, you'd be Twitter reporting, and you would record a podcast for your episode assignment, for your assignment.
Also, I think stories about interesting shaped clouds would be in the news today.
Oh,
it would
might
be on TikTok. It would be on social media.
Lady sees
and
cloud
then somebody
that looks
would
like
write
Jesus.
about it. Yeah, it would be on
something.
BuzzFeed, something like that.
Check out this cloud that looks like 4 different Pokemon.
A cloud that looks like Sybil Sheepherder would
Sybil
definitely
Sheepherder
be
cloud.
in the news.
Well, news is a very loose term these days also.
But otherwise, I mean, I think there definitely still exist journalism schools. People are still studying journalism.
Yeah, beginning journalism.
The discipline's a little bit different, but the premise of this show would hold up.
I would love, they should have done like Photography 101. He knows a lot more about photography. What happened to this dream?
It's gone. It's
Larry's
been gone
just
for a while.
abandoned his photography dream, which
You'd think once he got his foot in the door at the Chronicle as a reporter, he would advocate to be like, let me take some photos too. Yeah.
Never picks up a camera again.
No, he forgot all about it. But yeah,
didn't.
Otherwise, I think, did you have any other thoughts on PS today?
Think, a class is a class, community college, the kids are still don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And
kids,
Chuck
adults,
adults. Chuck, but like, was Chuck a high school student or
no? Chuck was like just a
post-high
dude
school
and
wanted to play football. I understand why he was there.
college.
Maybe he needed more credits to graduate.
Maybe.
Otherwise,
we could do this story.
You could do this story in a classroom setting of something you don't know.
Would there still be? Oh, there's definitely still fights on airplanes.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if not more, we've talked about this.
No smoking sections.
There's no.
Yes. Even the Rickroll would be relevant today if we remade.
Oh my God, he could still sing. Never gonna give me up. Never gonna give. Never gonna give.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part.
Yep.
All right, that's it for this week. Next week is the last episode of season 4, sister.
Wow, we made it.
Belky gets arranged married, I think. Oh my Lord.
Get out of the city.
We'll find out what happens.
Let's find out.
Season 4 finale. In the meantime, if you enjoy the show and want to support it, there's something you could do to ensure that we keep making the show, and that is by buying us a virtual coffee. Visit danceofjoypod.com/support. Toss a few dig does in there. It all goes back into the show, and it keeps us making Bibi Babkas late into the night as we cook and bake these episodes of podcasts.
And there are some other ways you can show us your love and support for our show and for Perfect Strangers. You can visit us at our website, danceofjoypod.com. There you'll find all the links for where you can listen to our podcast, where you can like and subscribe and leave us a rating or a review. You can also find links to all of our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can leave us a voice message from right there on the main page or send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Any of those are welcome. We would love to hear from you. Tell us about your first news story assignment and what grade did you get on it?
And what cloud shapes did you see walking down the street?
Yes, but Imran, what's the most important thing our listeners should do?
Is that it's always a good time to Rickroll someone. They won't be expecting it. It's been years since the Rickroll's been a thing. Do it now. It'll be a good laugh. And then send the clip with Balky. Let's get the Balky roll back into
the
meme.
most important thing is tell your friends and send that Balky Rickroll, the Balky roll clip to all your friends. Tell them about our show, Dance of Joy podcast. Tell them about Perfect Strangers. Share it with your 6-year-old like Scott. Share it with your journalism professor.
And your 60-year-old also. Ages 6 to 60.
In fact, I was watching one of these episodes the other day with our mother, and she was cracking up.
She's still cracking up.
The episode where they went to jail.
It's timeless.
Yes, share it from 6 to 60. Share it with everyone in your life. And that's our show for today. Now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy. We do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.